Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. My name is Mikhail Tinubu. I am the humble host on the show for you today, ready to drive you all around the world. Well, maybe not drive, pilot is more apt. I'm here to bring you all of the relevant sports stories that have been happening over the course of the day, and some of it even over the course of yesterday, being still breaking news. And one of it is pertaining to a football player that, in a way, his situation is akin to him retiring, but that is not exactly what is happening. And yet, it is kind of a heartbreaking moment. It is a goodbye, or maybe not a goodbye, maybe a see you later. I'm speaking, of course, of Captain Sergio Busquets, who has confirmed he will leave Barcelona at the end of the season after 18 years at the club. The former Spain midfielder, 34, has played 718 matches for Barcelona, the third most in the club's history. His list of honors won with the club includes 8 La Liga titles, 7 Copa del Rey, 7 Spanish Super Cups, and 3 Champions League titles. Busquets joined the club in 2005 as a youth player, progressing to Barcelona's B side before making his first team debut under manager Pep Guardiola in a 2008 league game against Racing Santander. The defensive midfielder, who has also won 3 European Super Cups and 3 Club World Cups with the Spanish Giants, is on course to end his Barcelona career with a 9th league title. Xavi's side are 13 points clear at the top of La Liga with 5 games remaining. Over his 15 years with the senior team, he has scored 18 goals and provided 40 assists. In announcing Busquets' decision to leave the Camp Nou, Barcelona described him as one of the best players ever to represent the club. The former Spain captain retired from international football in December, having won the 2010 World Cup and 2012 European Championship with his national side. I said it's sort of like him retiring, but we don't know where he's headed off to yet. Saudi Arabia has been beckoning with tremendous offers for his services. In the past, MLS have been involved in trying to pry him away from Barcelona, hoping to make the shores of the United States his final destination in terms of his footballing career. But until we know more about that, I think we should focus on how sad a day this is. The fact that all good things must come to an end, and Barcelona fans will certainly feel that way regarding this giant of a player in both stature and in reputation with the club. I have with me on the line Gboyega to talk about what this would mean for the future of Barcelona's defensive midfield position. Gbenga, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Mikhail. Thanks for having me. I think, first of all, I wouldn't really agree with the fact that it's a bitter exit or sad story. Yeah, I understand the fact that someone who is a loyal servant who has stayed in the club almost 2 decades, I mean, he stayed so long that he now had to play under his teammate as a coach. Xavi obviously is the current manager of FC Barcelona. Sorry, I didn't get that.
No. Continue, please.
Oh, okay. So it is really been a trophy-laden season, a successful spell, and I don't see it as a sad exit. I see it as moving on to better things, moving on to greater things. There's that saying that you age like fine wine, and Sergio Busquets is surely one of those. You see, even the likes of Fabregas, the likes of Iniesta, Xavi, before they retired and went into coaching, they actually aged like fine wines. The likes of Modric, they are the ones who grew with the game and never took their foot off the pedal. Busquets is not the one who will give you pace. Busquets is not the one who will give you physicality in the middle of the park. When it comes to technicality, when it comes to the holding midfield role, the person who is one of those that set the precedence for the 4-3-3 that stays in the base of the midfield, alongside Iniesta on the right and Xavi on the left. So everything about Sergio Busquets, I don't really see it as a sad exit. I see it as something to celebrate.
Speaking of technicality in the position, he has proven himself, or he has brought a level of technical prowess to the position that no other defensive midfielder before him or even after him has done. You're right, he won't bring you a lot of pace, he won't even necessarily bring you a lot of assists, but he keeps the position ticking along. He's not the strongest defensive midfielder in terms of recovering possession, in terms of tackling hard or marking players and ensuring that they have nowhere to go. We've had more industrious defensive midfielders like Makalele, like N'Golo Kante, even Xabi Alonso, who was a technically gifted Spanish defensive midfielder, had more tactical and gritty edge to his game. If you remember Javier Mascherano as well, both players were very good at recovering possession because they could tackle and defend very, very well, to the degree that even Javier Mascherano got moved back into the central defensive position. What is it about his technique that superseded, overwhelmed the need for a defensive midfielder that was more capable of tackling hard? Don't forget, Pep Guardiola famously sold Yaya Toure in preference for Sergio Busquets. What was it about his ability to be the technical defensive midfielder that made the need for the edge of a typical defensive midfielder unnecessary for Barcelona?
Well, coincidentally, before the news about before the news about Busquets came out, there was the talk about Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure was in the headlines about his time as a midfielder. And the reason I'm bringing on Yaya Toure is you talked about someone, a midfielder who is expressive, who is resourceful. And Yaya Toure is one of those midfielders who brought that. But he wasn't really preferred to Busquets because of playing ability. We had that discussion with a fan and also some colleagues, and they were talking about nationality. I think the core of the Barcelona team at that time were Spanish, were Catalans. So it also reflected in the national team. Of course, they won the World Cup in 2010. So I think one of the things that helped Busquets, aside from his technicality, he was part of that set, part of that graduates from the La Masia, or part of those people who had the Spanish heritage, who understood what it took to dominate in La Liga, and who also had a La Masia manager in Pep Guardiola to fix every part of the puzzle. So it's not just one-way traffic. A lot of things worked for Busquets, especially his technicality.
But the fact that Pep Guardiola preferred him never seemed to be an issue, even when Pep Guardiola left. Subsequent managers still preferred him over everybody else. I remember Alex Song left Arsenal thinking he had reached the pinnacle of his career, joining Barcelona, hoping that the prowess he brought to his position in the Arsenal team was something he would get the opportunity to replicate with Barcelona. He had his strengths. He had the ability to tackle hard. He could mark. He had an edge to his game. He could even lay on passes. He was credited with a couple of assists in the final season of Van Persie at Arsenal. And yet he could not display Sergio Busquets. And even players like De Jong, Frankie De Jong, who is currently at Barcelona, who has a lot of the technical requirement for the position, has never been able to displace Busquets from that position. What is it about Busquets' own unique style? Because he has been referred to as a very unique defensive midfielder. What is it about him, particularly, that other players who are just as technically gifted, who play in the same position, have never even been able to shift him from the said position?
First of all, there are different fine details that separate players and that also inform coach preference. You would also remember the same midfield role. We had the likes of Kante and Jorginho having some differences when Sarri came to coach Chelsea. We understood that N'Golo Kante was thriving in that DM role, thrived for Leicester City, won the league, thrived for Chelsea, won the league back to back in 2 different seasons in that same role. Then came Sarri, and Sarri said, no, I don't want you here. I want you higher up because I have somebody else that would do something much more controlling and technical for me in the DM. And he brought in Jorginho. So I think for Busquets, he has been able to warm himself to the different managers that have come to Barcelona, especially based on his ability to adapt to what the manager wants. So being technical isn't just how you handle the ball. Being technical is how you are able to interpret the tactics of the coach and execute the plan to the latter. No matter what you say about Kevin De Bruyne, that's how he's excelling in Man City under Pep.
As a defensive midfielder with technical prowess, one of the very best to play in that position was Andrea Pirlo. His position was more of the like of a deep line midfielder, a deep line playmaker, or register. And it was similar to what Sarri was trying to accomplish with Jorginho. While Busquets was never certainly up to the level of Andres Pirlo because he wasn't the kind of player who would spray passes long distance. He would control the midfield as the maestro throughout the game. He was never that. But do you think Sergio Busquets is perhaps the major reason in modern times that we have defensive midfielders that are more technical than aggressive, more technical than tackling experts and specialists?
In that regard, I'll still take it back to coach preference. You see the likes of Manchester United, for example. Coach preference will put Scholes in a particular position on the field of play, put Giggs in a particular position on the field of play, put Rekin and all those ones in a particular position in the field of play. And they would execute it to the latter just because the coach understands what the player brings and expects exactly that from the player. And I don't know, Pep Guardiola has been able to fine-tune that. He's doing that at Man City now. A lot of people will be wondering how he's been able to, aside from money, how he's been able to make players play to a particular style, whether you're coming from the bench or not. It's because he understands what the player build-up is and he utilizes it. So someone like Johan Cruyff, who brought in the total football, is somebody who sees a player like Sergio Busquets and he understands that, okay, this guy can hold the ball. This guy can push aside, like with one touch, he takes away 2 midfielders. I was fortunate to see I went back to watch some videos of him in the past, and it just reminds you also of Mikel Obi, the way they hold the ball, and with one touch, they are away from 2 or 3 midfielders. With one touch, they are converting possession into attack. And coaches see these things and they'll say, okay, because you can do this, stay here and do this. Some other players may be able to do that, but they are not dynamic like this.
Do you think in that regard, though, with Mikel, it is as the regards to his nationality, the fact that he's African, he is black, that he never got the kind of recognition that Busquets perhaps got? Because I was thinking about this exact point. His style of retaining the ball, recapturing the ball, and recycling it and passing it on with short passes and giving it to more creative players, midfielders, to do something more intelligent with it, was the hallmark of his game style, which is the same thing with Sergio Busquets. And in fact, it took Pep Guardiola a long while to find a player who was in a similar mode to Sergio Busquets in Rodri. Because Fernandinho was a more aggressive, more tackling specialist with less technique to retain possession and do everything that Sergio Busquets has done for Barcelona for years. Is it just down to nationality that has made it so that Mikel Obi isn't considered in the same regard as Sergio Busquets, even though they basically played the same way?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, Mikel Obi gave the best of the best even before becoming a senior player. He was on the same podium with Messi. We can always remember. Mikel Obi gave the best of the best in the Champions League final, the one Chelsea eventually went to win. Mikel Obi has given a lot of moments, but because his career would be tainted with one, he didn't play for Man U. He was stolen on the last grab. Sir Alex Ferguson will have used him in a better position. He never changed what Mikel brought to the game. And back to Busquets, I felt like that was the edge Busquets had. The only reason why he was preferred ahead of Yaya Toure was because he was Spanish, not because he was better than Yaya Toure. So it's about the nationality and also the fact that, see, if you work in a company and your Oga needs a particular output, regardless of your qualification or skill, if you can give your Oga that particular output, he will always prefer you, because he knows that if I give you this job, the way I want you to do it is the way you will do it. Other people will still get the same result, but they may not do it the way the Oga likes it. That's preference. And that's what Busquets brings to the game. He's able to understand, this is what the manager requires from me, and this is how I execute it. And he plays for every... Why is Havertz always starting under any manager, regardless of whether he scores or not, in Chelsea, since he was bought by Lampard? He adapts to every single man. Manager will tell you, I want you to hold the ball. I want you to be here. I want you to position you. And Havertz to do it. And he will always start ahead of the number 9s that we expect to start. It's not magic. It's because the player understands this is what is required and he executes it to the latter.
Sounds to me like you're saying that rumors of Kai Havertz leaving Chelsea may not come true.
Well, that depends on the next manager anyway. If the next manager sees that the only way to move forward with this team is to actually jiggle the formation and play with an out-and-out striker that would guarantee you goals, then maybe Havertz to be moving out the door, because I don't see him coming to the midfield to displace anybody, especially if Enzo Fernandez is still there, Kovacic is still there, João Felix is retained and the likes of it. Even Mason Mount is still in that team. So if Havertz is not going, if the coach coming in is not going to be seeing a false 9 in Havertz, he may be leaving the club. But also, that still depends on the preference of the coach.